Let me quickly pivot to Congresswoman Plaskett for a second and just ask her about her experience in Congress, having served a little less time than the other two. But I wanted her to at least talk about your perspective as a delegate, as somebody representing the Virgin Islands. You don't have the ability to your votes. I shouldn't say they don't count on the floor, but you certainly vote in committee. You obviously had a very high profile role last year during the impeachment proceedings. And could you just tell us what it is that you experience? How do you maintain and interact with your colleagues, given that your role is a little bit more limited and that you have less privileges on the floor?
Sure. Well, I think that one of the things that you're hearing discussed quite often between Tom and Rosa when it comes to the appropriations is that you can see that these are individuals who are really in love with the policy, right, of legislating. And for those members who are interested in policy, there's always opportunities to be bipartisan. Those members of Congress who come for, let's say, face it, performative politics, then that work is not going to get done as much for them. But if you come, one of the first advice that I got, I'm in my fourth term now, is that you quickly get a reputation among other members, is whether you're a show horse or workhorse or others, right? And if you put yourself out there as someone who is very serious about policy and a workhorse, members are willing to work with you. And I think you can see that, and they're prime examples of that. I recognize that there are ways that I particularly need to collaborate with other individuals. I look at members, Connecticut doesn't have such a large delegation, but if you look at like the California or the New York delegation, those are tremendously large groups of members who have other individuals that they can rely on. When you are the sole member of a particular area, like myself being a member of a territory, then you must collaborate with people. There's no way that you're going to get things done for your constituents if you do not do that. Additionally, being a member of a territory, I don't have two senators that are going to support me. And so I quickly learned that members of the House have floor privileges on the Senate. And I have 2 or 3 senators that I'm quite friendly with, that when I go to the Senate floor to look for senators that I'm trying to get to support a legislation or be the individual who has the companion bill in the Senate, that those are the people that I can go to. Rosa DeLauro is a proud progressive. You described Tom Cole as someone who is a strong conservative. I happen to be a moderate Democrat, a pragmatic Democrat. I served in a Republican administration under George W. Bush, worked at the Justice Department. My first job after working for my predecessor's predecessor as a college student, when I came back to the Hill after graduating from law school, I was hired by Rob Portman, worked for Lamar Smith. So I recognize in my role that there are people that I need on both sides of the aisle to support me in the things that are important, and to be very specific and very focused on what can work and what cannot work. And I think that that has served myself and my constituency well. When I first came to Congress, I worked on what I consider the most partisan committee, oversight, and one of the most bipartisan committees, agriculture. And on the oversight committee, I think that there were members who, while we absolutely disagree on pretty much any hearing that we had, we still tried to respect one another. I had dinner with Trey Gowdy regularly because we respected each other as former prosecutors and the arguments, the logic of the arguments that we were working. But particularly on the agriculture committee, there were so many areas in which we could come together. And I'm so happy that I've continued to do that on the Committee on Agriculture and finding common ground to support farmers, food producers across the country, and is evidenced by a bipartisan final passage of the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, working on broadband expansion, on supporting our food supply systems after the COVID pandemic. Those are ways that we're all trying to work together. And Charlie, for me as a member of the territory, particularly after our natural disasters of 2017, we really were able to see Congress work in an incredibly bipartisan way through the passage, the bipartisan act in that space. It was really the Bicameral Disaster Recovery Reform Act, which really addressed resiliency, better preparations for the next hurricanes and flood, earthquakes, and wildfires. And it contains a focus on pre-disaster planning and mitigation, which of course went on both sides of the aisle.
Thank you. You just, Stacy, I learned something about you here. I did not realize that you would work for both Rob Portman and Lamar Smith.
I still, when I go to the floor of the Senate, I immediately, of course, go to my former boss and I'm like, boss, I need your help on, finding someone to support this particular legislation.
Well,
we got a lot of people right now that like to pride themselves as being disruptors. I'm sorry, that's not why the people in my district sent me there. They sent me there to get some things done, and they're willing to tolerate the fact that it might not be perfect, but at least moves them in the right direction and makes the country a little bit better.
I mean, Charlie, one thing I would say, I couldn't agree more. As a former attorney, you know that a contract is great when everybody is a little upset about it, when no one gets everything that they want, but people feel that it's something that they can live with. That's something that's going to be a lasting contract. And I think right now, I'm now sitting on the Ways and Means Committee. I've retained my seat on agriculture. There are so many consequential issues going on in our country right now that really allows those of us who want to do good policy work to come together in specific areas. I'm really tremendously grateful for people, the leadership of our senior members like Tom Cole and Rosa DeLauro, who are taking us into those spaces for appropriations to allow some measure of community-based funding so that members can feel like they have skin in the game and are willing to support specific measures while we continue to work on broader issues that are good for us around the country. The fact that I can partner with individuals like Rodney Davis, who's in rural Illinois, and Abigail Spanberg in Virginia on broadband issues, because we know that that cuts across our country. And those are things that this pandemic has showed us that we must respond to in this time. And so I think that members are finding those pockets and are really utilizing this space that we have right now to drive those things through.
before we go to questions from the audience, I thought I would just go back to Representative Plaskett for a second and ask her, you're not even on the Judiciary Committee, yet you were selected to be an impeachment manager. A lot of we know who you were, Stacy, but your colleagues and your constituents, but the American people got to know you a little better, because you spent a lot of time on national television for several days, and obviously it was a high honor to be selected by your leadership. How did that happen, and what was that experience like from your perspective?
Well, I think one of the amazing things about Speaker Pelosi is her recognition of who her caucus is. And she really knows the individuals in her caucus. She isn't just able to count votes, but really has an intimate knowledge of people's strengths and weaknesses as well. And I think that she was able to come up with a team in that instance that, if you looked at us, really represented a range of America, both geographic, gender, age, and all of us had a certain skill set in terms of experience as attorneys that I think allowed us to mesh really well together. I was not expecting the call from her, but when the speaker calls you and asks you to do something of that nature, you're going to say yes.
You do it.
And you do it. And I told her, listen, I see this as a calling. I see this as really a service to another level of service to my country. And I want us to operate that way. And I think, if you ask members on both sides of the aisle, that while we were in there, we really did not try to engage in histrionics, that we really tried to pare down the information and the evidence that we were given to let the facts speak for themselves rather than let our voices and our rhetoric do the talking. And, Charlie, just to give you guys, and Tom, you'll appreciate this, when we were in that back room and the weeks of preparation being led by Jamie Raskin, and of course, the amazing staff that we have in the Congress, part of my job was to speak Republican for the team. They're like, Stacey, you're the only one who actually speaks Republican. You're the only person who was a Republican at some point in time. And so you need to change the rhetoric quite often to some of the language that, a Jamie Raskin or a Ted Lieu were trying to come up with, or an Eric Swalwell. But, I just have to say that, I think the honor goes to the speaker for recognizing the skill sets of the people that she has, and trying to bring a team together that she believed would mesh together. And I'll have you note, we did not have leaks in that group. We worked very quietly and meticulously together. And I think members, when, you're called to serve in different forms, I know Tom, you and Rosa have been called by your leadership in different areas that, whether you want to do the job or not, you say, put me into coach, I'll be part of the team. You see this, Charlie? I knew this was going to happen. 3 appropriators and me. We just make the money in ways and means, and then our younger children in appropriations spend it. I feel like a parent here. I feel like a parent.
Only if you help me make the child tax credit permanent. That's what you need to do. I just want to tell you one anecdote from Paul Ryan. When he was a speaker, he said to me, "I didn't realize how complex the appropriations process is." I said, "Welcome to the NFL." I mean, we're